open your mind.
The good doctor is in the house. The good doctor.
Open your mind.
In the house. The good doctor in the house.
Open your mind.
Dr. Wallace.
Okay,
You hear
yeah,
me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
But wait a minute. I went through my whole spiel and nobody heard it.
No, I was wondering what was going on. I said maybe because I'm backstage, I can't hear it. But yeah,
Damn, I went through my whole, talking all my crap, my opening monologue. But anyway, thank you for coming, Dr. Wallace. I came across a piece of your work the other day, and I found it very interesting because I've heard of you before. I believe my wife watches you on Facebook, so she's a fan of yours. But I looked into the piece of work you had talking about incest, molestation, and rape inside the African American community, and I believe you published that in 2016, right? I believe.
right.
And we talk about it often here on this side of media. And the reason why I wanted you to come tonight, because we wanted to have a professional insight on this thing. And me personally, maybe it's just me, I think that many of the things that ail Black people, I think this whole incest and inbreeding and molestation, I think it is part of it. Am I wrong to think that?
Not at all. I think that one of the problems that we have as a collective, as a race, and then as a society as a whole, is that we isolate behaviors without understanding the conglomerate influence of experiences. When it comes to childhood experiences, such as physical abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, incest, and things like that, they're also classified on a grand scale as what is known as ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And these adverse childhood experiences, each adverse childhood experiences, there are 10 primary that are recognized by most clinical professionals, researchers, or those who study it. And they range from uh, any type of abuse, from physical, emotional, sexual abuse, parents divorcing, parents becoming incarcerated, parents being addicted to a chemical substance. And what in each one of those instances is considered an ACE point. All you need is 4 ACE points, and then you're in a catastrophic path to a lifetime of different issues just in health alone. A child that has 4 ACEs is 12 times more likely to attempt suicide. They are 4 times more likely to develop diabetes, heart disease, ischemic heart disease, and a number of other different physical illnesses. So, and this carries out over the course of the lifetime. And so you have to understand that just in that sense alone, you're talking about something catastrophic. But when you're talking about something as serious as sexual abuse, molestation, and incest, now you're talking about a traumatic injury. And with that traumatic injury comes what we call a traumatic memory. And that traumatic memory is what keeps driving the reliving of the experience. And in essence, when you become traumatized, now experiencing a traumatic event doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be traumatized by it. And there are a number of different factors, too many to get into, that can impact that. But what happens is when you are traumatized, uh, it's an interruption of the natural linear process of your timeline. So what happens when a normal event takes place is you have an event, you categorize it, you catalog it in your mind, and it goes down as a memory. Whenever you recall that event, it comes in as a memory, but it also is categorized automatically by the brain and the mind as something that happens in the past. When you come to a traumatic event that traumatizes you, when it comes up, it actually comes up as a reenactment of, or a reliving of. And so you literally re experience it as if it were happening now. And it comes with a number of different behaviors, um, hypervigilance, fear of a foreshortened death, and a number of other different behaviors that make it extremely difficult to operate effectively in a social environment.
So, I mean, I've read the percentages. I've read the stats on child molestation because, like I said, we talk about it a lot over here, and I think that a lot of us. I don't want to say that it causes most of the people that it happens to. I don't want to say that it causes adverse effects on them. Make them drug addicts, make them more likely to go to jail and all that kind of stuff. But that does play a part in it, right? I mean, promiscuity, bad
Well,
habits, bad decision making, all that kind of stuff, right?
right. Well, let's narrow down the primary issue to that of a sexual nature. So we're going to say rape, molestation, and incest. Um, and we're going to say primarily minors. So probably about 20 years ago, in my practice, I'm working with clients. And over the course of about 18 months, I noticed a pattern that I hadn't picked up on before, but it was there once I went back and I researched, but I hadn't really picked up on it. I guess I was becoming more in tune with what was going on with our people. And so I paid maybe a little bit more attention to the patterns that I was seeing. The pattern that I noticed was that at a very high rate, um, at a very high rate, the females that were coming to me, Black females, were, after going through the process. Normally, when I work with someone, we don't just go dive in. We have to develop a level of trust, because where we're going is going to be pretty scary. If you've dealt with some trauma in the past, and I sense you dealt with trauma, then we do what I call we peel layers. We start with where you're at and we slowly go backwards. And in the process of doing that, we eventually get back to the cause of everything else that you're doing. We get to the cause, because without getting to the cause, you cannot, without getting to the cause, you cannot have the cure. You cannot heal. You can hide symptoms, you can suppress symptoms, but the goal is to heal and become whole again. And so when we get back, what I found is a high number. I mean, I'm talking about 80% or higher of the females that were coming to me, Black females that were coming to me, had some form of sexual trauma as a minor, meaning before the age of 18, they had experienced some force sexual trauma by someone in their family, a friend, or someone that they knew. Um, and so I went to a colleague of mine and asked him a question. I said, man, either we got a problem that we're not acknowledging, or I've got to be the most unlucky therapist on the planet, because I'm getting an extremely high number of Black women who've been molested or in some way sexually violated as a child. He told me, no, it's not just you. So then I started looking into it. And it wasn't, at the time, it wasn't a whole lot of research that focused on that. So you had to kind of be very, very diligent in acquiring the numbers to sort of validate this idea that you're having. And now there's more and more, the empirical data is starting to accumulate on this particular issue, and we're seeing it. But what we found is on a very liberal perspective, we're talking 60% to 62% of Black women have been in some way sexually violated before their 18th birthday. In the most conservative numbers, we're talking 40%. So anywhere we go, we're talking about an extremely large number of Black women who have been violated in some way or another sexually. And that comes with it a number of different responses. Not everyone reacts to this type of violation or in physical infraction the same way. Some will become promiscuous and will develop an inability to control their sexual urges. Others will be found on the extreme polar end of that pole, where they don't trust anyone and they don't want to have sex. They hate sex. It makes them feel dirty. Others will seek an escape route with alcoholism or some form of drug that will allow them to literally check out for large periods of time. And some will become extremely hostile. Others will develop certain mental psychosis. And all of this can be attributed to what happened to them as a child. Obviously, there are all other variables that you have to take into consideration over time. But when you have a large group, and in that large group, you have what you call a cluster of certain behaviors, and it's common among the group, then you have to say there's some direct linkage to the commonality that the group has. And in this instance, it's being sexually violated as a child. So yeah, definitely, when you start seeing that, you have to look at it. And what you find is, a lot of times, even when there isn't initially an admission or a report of something happening, it's a lot of times because the memory has been suppressed. And then it takes, again, a lot of work of peeling back and getting there to actually realize, yes, it did happen. So it runs deep, and it's a issue that we can definitely call an elephant in the room because we haven't done a very good job of addressing it.
Yeah, I notice in your work you speak of the the silence, um, the unwillingness to say anything. I mean, why do you think that is? I mean, why is it that we know this stuff is going on? We know this stuff is happening to children. We know it. All right. It's not like we don't know it. Why the reluctance to say anything when we know that saying something could stop it? I mean, why do you think there's such a reluctance in the adults? Forget the kids. You know, the children are probably afraid, but I'm
Right.
talking about the adults. Why why do we always have this constant cycle of adults who just won't say anything or are in flat denial that it's even happening at all?
Well, I think first you have to look at the historical context from which this emerges. And in historical context, what you have traditionally before the 1960s is you have a situation in which uh, the male in the home is the primary provider or the sole provider. You remove him from the home, and there's immediate financial strain. He's also the protector, quote unquote, protector of the home, not doing a very good job if he's the violator. But sometimes he's not. Sometimes it's somebody else in the home. A lot of the issues that I found wasn't the father, it was the brother, it was the cousin, it was the uncle, it was the friend of the father. Um, and so it's a number of different ways it happens, but sometimes it the ancestral uh, relationships are the father, and I've seen a number of those. But when you go back, what you have is a situation. You've got what I call it is silent condemnation. What silent condemnation is, you have two forms of condemnation when you condone a behavior. The first one is you outwardly or overtly condone it. You literally like, hey, that's cool. You know, if that's what you want to do, you do it, blah, blah, blah. You won't get that in a primary sense in this type of situation. You get what's known as silent condemnation. Silent condemnation is simply condoning it by not speaking out, by not doing something to stop it. You are in essence condoning it. The moment that someone that's doing it knows, you know, and you're not going to do anything about it, you just condone their behavior, right or wrong. And the problem with it was this natural behavior that can be traced back to slavery of the black woman to protect the black man, because the black man was the primary target, and the attacks on the black man by slave owners, by the overseers, and what a lot of people don't realize is the most feared person on the plantation wasn't the white male slave owner or the overseer. It was the mistress of the plantation. um, and that came in a lot of different ways, and her wrath was severe, and it often ended in severe punishment or even death. And so there were ways that black women would literally go out of their ways to be the buffer in between uh, the hostility and the black man. That carried on into uh, the emancipation stage, where we are now out there and we're still going through a very hostile stage. You got to remember, we went right from being slaves right into Reconstruction, where the South was rebuilding itself and reestablishing its antebellum roots after the clandestine groups like the Klan pushed the military installments from the North out. So it left us 2 million slaves down here with no protection for 12 years, which was Reconstruction. Then we had the black codes, we had convict leasing, we had sharecropping, we had almost 70 years of Jim Crow segregation, where it was literally uh, nobody was doing anything. You could lynch a black man in public, have a picnic, and it was, wasn't anything going to happen. Uh, and so there was this need, or this natural urge for Black women, and then also the church played a major role in this, and the church doesn't like to deal with it. And but the church played a major role. There is countless instances in which pastors have advised wives not to report their husbands because it would pull them out of the home. Um, there are countless times where the person who was molested uh, became the black sheep in the family, became the person who was the outcast, ostracized by the family, looked at as the enemy, because the family secrets rested in them, and they were ready to open up and express themselves and release those secrets, and they became the enemy, and they either had to break away from the family or they had to operate in extreme hostility. But to basically answer the question, you're talking about a situation where there's a natural proclivity to protect the provider, as well as the inherent nature of Black women to cover Black men and keep them out of harm's way when possible. And then the leadership of the Black community, which is Black clergy, in many instances were protecting Black men for whatever reason. And so the combination of that led to a lot of situations in which it just was not brought to the surface. There were times that the community knew. It was obvious. I can remember back, I was a 60s baby and I grew up in the 70s and finished high school in the 80s. And I can tell you there was more than one instance where there were people in our neighborhood that everybody knew that he was having, that his daughter's child was his, that your grandson is also your son, or your granddaughter is also your daughter. And that was known in the neighborhood. And, while people would whisper, nobody was doing anything about it. And like I said, this is the 60s and 70s primarily. And so it's been a problem for a while.
Yeah, well, do you think that this is still going on today in 2022, and is it for those same reasons? Are these people who are doing this, are they still being protected by these women? Are they still being protected by, clergy and people at the churches? That, do you think that that's still going on to this day right now?
I don't have the empirical data to back up my claim, but I know that I can tell you I know it's going on. I can't tell you that I know it's going on at the rate that it was 40 years ago, but I can tell you it's going on. I can tell you it's going on because I have connections to CPS. So I know
Mhm.
children are being pulled from the home for that very reason. Not that being put in foster care is a better situation, because foster care is feeding human trafficking rings. So you got all of these different things that are going on. But yes, it's definitely going on. A lot of these child murders where you're seeing the child being murdered by um, uh, stepfathers or boyfriends or whatever, and mothers are covering it up. A lot of times, those murders are because the child is coming of age and able to talk, and they are concerned about it, and it comes out in various ways, but it's definitely still happening. We the frightening thing about it is because it's so underreported that we won't really get the statistics about what's happening now until the people who are being victimized are of age and able to report it, or able to talk about it in therapeutic sessions. And we still won't know the truth because there will be so many that will never ever come forth.
Mm. Well, I want to ask you about this because I think that when it comes to us as a people, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of us out there. Um, we don't know who our father is. There's a lot of us out there who our fathers don't have anything to do with us. I think a lot of this stuff would halt. I don't know if it would totally go away, but it's kind of hard to violate a child when a child is under the protection of his father. Um, I think a lot of these children are unprotected. I think black children are the most unprotected people around. I truly believe that. And and I think we got to do more to protect these children. I think we got to do a little more to stop this from happening. And when we hear about it the first time, we make that the last time. Because just reading your work, when this stuff happens to a kid, man, this is one of the worst things that can happen to a child, man. And it'll affect them all throughout their whole life. I've had many people on this very stream, on this very program, who have come and talked about it and discussed it and talked about how, their mother just ignored her boyfriend doing this, that, and the other thing to them. Just and you can hear it in their voices, doctor, that it still affects them today. And these people are in their 30s and 40s. They're not even in their 20s. I mean, these are
I
middle-aged
have
people.
I have clients. I have 2 clients right now still struggling with this, and they're in their 60s.
Wow.
So that speaks to the severity of it. And I think that you do have a very valid point when you talk about the fact that our kids are unprotected. Yeah. The truth of the matter is there is data out there, pragmatic and empirical data that's out there that points to the fact that a child that is not in the house with his or her biological father is uh 3 to 4 times more likely to be abused, not just sexually, but physically abused. And normally it's going to be by the mom's new partner. And so that's a reality. That's an issue that we need to confront. And how can we deal with this? And you understand when you talk about this, like I said, there's information out there that says in 1960, we were talking about 75% of Black children were born into 2-parent households with the biological father being in the house. We're almost the reverse of that now. We're almost at 72, 73% born into single parent households where the biological father is not in the house. And so, with that being said, there's not the natural environment of protection. There's not the natural uh, mechanism of covering of a physical, emotional, and even spiritual covering that a father is supposed to provide in the home. That's absent. Um, there is a lot of issues that we have to address as to why women will allow men to come in and do that, because a person who is whole and healed would not. This isn't about applying excuses. This is about understanding that if you're going to fix the problem, you got to acknowledge all the elements and the components of the problem. And finger pointing does absolutely nothing to fix it. It feels good to go out and say, you did this, you did that, and throw some adjectives out there that we can't say right now. And it feels good, but it's done nothing to change it. So then you have to study, and you have to invest in understanding the behavior and where the behavior comes from. It's not natural to do that. It's not natural to behave in a number of different ways we do. So then you have to ask yourself, where's the behavior coming from? And we tend to be very critical of ourselves. So when someone starts talking about, well, they're doing this because of this, we don't want to hear it, because they shouldn't be doing it, but blah blah blah. But the problem is, no, they shouldn't be. And after a certain age, no matter what's happened to you as a child, it's going to be ultimately your responsibility to fix it, because I'm almost guaranteeing you the person that did it to you is not going to fix it. So it's up to you. But we still have to give consideration to why you are where you are.
Well, I want to jump into another N word, because we're doing the N words tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is inbreeding. Do you think that there is a risk of inbreeding throughout Black society? And I'll tell you why I bring that up. Because when you have a lot of kids out there who don't if you don't know who your father is, right? You have no idea who your father is. Anybody out there that you meet can potentially be a sister, a brother, a cousin, a aunt, or whatever, because you don't know who your father is. Therefore, you don't know what other kids he has, his sisters, his whatever. So anybody out there could be potentially related to you if you don't know who your father is. So do
Mhm.
we run a risk of inbreeding because of that? Because of the small percentage of men out there who may have 10, 15 baby mamas and they got kids that they don't know about. Is that kid at risk when he goes out to look for a mate? He looking for a girlfriend or a woman looking for a boyfriend. Is that a risk? Is that a thing that we should be concerned with?
Um, as crazy as it may sound, absolutely. Um, and it's not as far fetched when you take into consideration the complete dynamic as it may sound on the surface to some of us. No, actually, it can happen, and you have to be aware of how it happens. Number one is what you said is going to be a problem, because if I'm procreating and I'm spreading my seeds, there are a couple of things that happens. I'm spreading my seeds, and there are multiple uh, women who are having my kids. Then they may not all know each other, and they may not all bring their children together to create sibling bonds. So the kids may not know each other. That's the first thing that we're talking about, is where the siblings don't know each other. They're out there, they're siblings, and they don't know each other. It could easily been me, because I never met my dad, but my dad, procreated. I just had the first word. I'm 54 years old. I just had the first conversation with my one of my younger brothers, who I hadn't met for until recently. I mean, like a couple of years ago. I just had my first conversation with him. I knew he existed. I had heard about him, but if I saw him in a crowd, I wouldn't know. I've got a sister in Atlanta I still haven't met. I know she's out there, but I never met her. If I ran across her, I wouldn't know her. And this is just my family and my situation with my dad, but it happens. So the idea that you could, by chance run across someone, um, that's a possibility. How probable it is to happen on a grand scale? Probably not a whole lot. Here's the problem. The bigger problem with inbreeding is when you don't have children who are around each other on a regular basis when they're growing up. They're born in different houses, reared by different parents. And even if the father eventually brings them together, there's no sibling bond. They don't see each other as siblings in that sense. Now, they might say, this is my sister, this is my brother, blah, blah, blah. But there's a bond that you develop when you're coming up, that you develop this. And that when you go through sexual maturity, you don't have a sexual attraction to your siblings. No matter how attractive everybody else thinks they are, they're your siblings. That doesn't take place if you're not reared in the same house. So now you come around each other and you're trying to keep this sibling thing going, but you're looking over there going, man, she sure looking good. And she looking at you and going, whatever. Y'all hanging out one night, y'all go out friends, y'all chilling at the house. And it pops off. I know of several that have literally, what's funny, I know of one that actually were married before they found out they were siblings. I know another two that knew they were siblings, half siblings. In the black community, we don't do too much of the half stuff. If you were born by the same mom,
Yeah.
Your brother and sister, no matter who your daddy was. That's just the way I was reared. Um, but so you have these probabilities, and that second one is more likely to happen. The one where that's your sibling, but you don't have a sibling bond with them. Wow. And that's a reality, and it does happen, and it's a problem. And so, can inbreeding be an issue? Yes. And so
go ahead, Doc.
No, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say was, so if you have these inbreeding situations, and kids are coming out of said situations, now we have a new problem, right? Because inbreeding comes with problems too, right?
Right.
I mean,
Uh,
you're talking all kinds of problems from inbreeding.
right. Genetic problems, mental problems, performance problems, and a bunch of other things that comes out. And then there is, again, I have so many clients that I deal with on this. This is why you saw that report. It's also in my book, Born in Captivity: Psychopathology as a Legacy of Slavery. I talk about it in there as well. I talk about it in The Undoing of the African American Mind. But what you get is this. I've got a number of clients that are the products of incest.
Mm.
And the moment they find out your uncle is your daddy or your granddaddy is your daddy or whatever situation, that's an entire new trauma and psychological issue they have to work through. They'll start acting out, they'll become withdrawn, they will take on a number of different risky or what we would call risque behaviors that put them in jeopardy. Just all different types of behaviors that are not what we would call pro-social.
So what you're saying, Doc, is that were they quote unquote normal before they found out, and then once they found out that grandpa was also their daddy, that's when they start to act out a little more.
On the psychological side, behavioral issues, yes. When you start talking about congenital effects based on genetics, where you're talking about birth defects and things of that nature, that's going to be from birth. Some will be more pronounced, some will be less pronounced, but those things will happen at birth. There will be times when a person will know they have a congenital effect, and they won't know why until later in life when they find out based on some medical emergency or based on some situation where blood tests have to be taken. And now you're realizing, wait a minute, and in how it is revealed is equally important. Most of the times it's not revealed in a structured uh, environment where the environment has been developed and more conducive to not being as disrupted. Normally, it's found out by way of a violent release of a secret by someone angry.
Mm.
Somebody gets mad at somebody else and say, you need to ask him who your daddy is, or you need to ask her who your real daddy is, or and there you go. Now you have this traumatic event that takes place, and you found out something of that significance in a very emotionally violent way. And so that's just one thing. And so it's like it's so many different layers to the way a person can be damaged out of this that it'll blow your mind. I mean, number one is, if you are a part of the problem, if you are the person that's being molested, that's the experience. Then you go through the traumatic experience of having it shoved back down your throat because nobody will believe you. Then you have somebody threatening you that if you tell the truth, I'm going to kill everybody in the house. And then you got all of this stuff you're carrying. So you shut up, you mind your business, you take it, you grow up. And then the whole family doesn't believe you when you come out and you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So it is immensely important that we start to address this at a core level. And it's so, and the problem is that it's so pervasive, especially if you're talking about people over 30. It's so pervasive that you're going to have a hard time getting to the root of it, because you're going to be stepping on toes, right? Right when you go off into the community, you start sitting up saying, we need to build these type of programs. We need to develop these type of programs. You're going to be stepping on some shoes, because there's going to be some people that are perpetuating these behaviors. And they don't want that in their house. They don't want oversight. They don't want accountability. They don't want the therapy. Nobody wants anybody to get therapy if it's that type of behavior that's going on in the house, because those secrets come out in therapy.
Oh yeah.
And what happens is the person who you've been able to manipulate and suppress starts to feel strength and starts to gain a sense of courage, and now they want to confront the situation, and it's not going to bode well for you. And so there's all this pushback, and so now what we're dealing with is a community that doesn't want to confront its issue because it's going to land on a bunch of doorsteps.
Yeah. And we are secretive people. Because for instance, I mean, somebody was touching on kids 15, 20 years ago, and he still gets invited to Thanksgiving dinner. He still gets invited to the family reunion. And, he's walking around there pretending like nothing ever happened. And guess what? Not only are the parents of those kids walking around there pretending like nothing happened, even the people who endured it 15, 20 years ago, they're walking around there pretending like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
So you got just a bunch of people walking around pretending at Thanksgiving dinner.
Right. The trend and tendency in this is that the perpetrator is the most protected person in the family. Everybody else is basically bending around his existence. And sometimes it's her. And I think we need to, be honest about how many women literally are violating children.
Oh yeah.
And so we don't need to make it just be a man thing. This is an issue where both male and females are violating children sexually. Okay, so here's the thing though. You got this dude who everybody in the family knows. You know why everybody in the family knows? Because once upon a time, somebody saw some children hanging around that hadn't been violated yet, and they said, hey, you need to get your children.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to say anything else, because when somebody said you need to get them children from around Rob or John or whoever it is, everybody knows what that means. And so now you could be at the family reunion, like you said, everybody's pretending nothing's wrong until them kids get close to him.
Yeah.
And then somebody saying you need to get them kids. And that's the only time that it's ever even brought up. And everybody just knows, get the kids. The fact that he's still invited, I mean, the fact that he's still breathing, as far as I'm concerned,
yeah,
is a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem.
See, my whole thing is, I have a real simple minded thing. I tell people all the time. There's this idea and this notion of moral superiority, and everybody claims to have it. White people want to pretend they are morally superior to everybody else. Black people want to believe, because we've been through everything, we're morally superior. And I think on a spiritual level, we have a more empathetic perspective and approach to things. So we tend to care more. So we treat people nicer as a general rule. But I tell people all the time, it's not morality that keeps people from misbehaving. It's consequence. The vast majority of people do what they do in this world because they don't like the consequences of doing something different. There are a bunch of people that'd be dead right now if the person that didn't like them wasn't afraid of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the reality. I use the extreme there, but that's the reality. And the same thing, until you put a consequence that's so undesirable with a behavior that you don't like, you will continue to have to endure the behavior. If you sit up and say you get caught messing with a kid, it's immediate death. You'll never make it to the jail. The system won't get to try you. We're going to put you down. If you made that clear, that violating, and to me, it's not just children, it's women. Violating a woman or violating a child is immediate death. Period. I guarantee you, there's some sick people who will still try, because some people are just, sick to a level, absolutely no way they can control it. Others are just predators. And the bottom line is, are you willing to risk your life to hunt? Because that's what you're doing. You're preying on the weak. You're preying on the vulnerable. You're preying on those who can't defend themselves, who can't get away from you. But you're a predator, you know. But the thing is, what we as black men have to do, and this is me taking off the scientific hat and me putting on the father hat. What we as black men have to do is show these predators that they aren't the apex predator in the community, that the dad willing to die for his family is the apex predator, because he's killing anything that becomes a threat. And that, now here's the crazy thing, and I'll say this and I'll turn it back over to you. Here's the crazy thing. The moment that we take that mindset with this one thing, it will naturally become an instinctive behavior with other things, which means people coming from outside the community, in the community, to cause harm would also understand these people don't play. If you come in here and kill one of my sons, you're not leaving. Now, y'all might get me, but you're not leaving. If you come in here and wrongfully harm somebody in this community, you're not leaving. Period. That consequence sends a message. Do I really want to go in there and do that? Is it really worth it? But when there are no consequences, the boldness of that behavior extends itself. At some point, we have to stand up and say, not on my watch. Man, one of the things that I saw back in 80 something, I want to say 83, 84. That's back when, I was reared by my great grandparents, by the way. So I was reared by my grandmother's parents. So I got a big age gap, generational gap in the house. But my grandparents watched the 5:30 and 6 o'clock news religiously. So if you was in the house, you was watching the news at that time. And I remember that was, I want to say in San Francisco. I can't remember where. I want to say in San Francisco. I could be wrong. But a little girl had been kidnapped. A little white girl had been kidnapped by a white guy, taken away and sexually molested. They found him. He still had her. They found him, got the little girl back, and they finally got him extradited, and they were bringing him back in through the airport. The father knew about it. He sit there and waited. He was on the phone with a friend, and he told the friend, in a second, you're about to hear a pop. When they got by him, he said, oh, I gotta go. He dropped the phone, turned around, and popped him right in the head. He didn't do no time for it.
Wow.
He didn't do any time for it. I forget exactly how it was eventually adjudicated, but he didn't do any time for it. I'm not saying that's going to be the outcome for us, but sometimes you got to be willing to sacrifice something in order to fight for something. And I think that is a part of our problem across the board, is we want a lot, but we're not really ready to go the distance to have it.
Yeah. And don't people count on that? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Forget the part that they're this deviant, freaking miscreant person. They don't see the consequence. There's pretty much a lack of consequence because they can count on the mother not saying anything. They can count on it being kept quiet. They can count on the kid not saying too much and nobody believes them. So, when you have these lack of consequences, you make it easy. You make it really, really easy for people who have these, deviant minds. You make it easy for them to go right ahead and march right through because there is no foreseeable consequences at the end of their act, right?
Right.
So maybe, just maybe, we might, I don't know, a few of us may have to go ahead and sacrifice our freedom and our lives to, make it so some of these guys don't exist anymore, to set a precedent, and maybe, just maybe, we can get a handle on this stuff once they figure out that people are willing to die and kill over this. So
I agree with that. I think that, obviously, the love I have for my people is, at the forefront. So the last thing I want to see is the loss of life. But I think that the number one call of a man is to protect. We've been commodified in this country so much that everyone judges us by our money. And I think that a man needs to be a provider. I think that he needs to be a financial covering, but I don't think that he needs to be undervalued if he can't do the whole load. Some of us are blessed enough that we can. Some of us are not. But are we out there busting our ass to do it? Is the question. But more importantly, before a man is a provider, and I tell people all the time, and I think it's important to understand this. I tell people all the time that before a man is a provider, he's a protector first. And being a protector is the one thing that can never be taken away from him, as long as he's physically healthy. Uh, you can be the best provider in the world, and something can go wrong, and for a while, you won't be providing the way you used to. You can your business can go bankrupt, your job can lay you off. You can come down with an illness, but as long as you're healthy, you can stand up and tell the world, everybody behind me belongs to me, and you got to go through me to get to them. And I'm willing to go all out to stop you. And that's something that a man can do no matter how many dollars or dimes are in his pocket. He can sit up and say, you're not going to harm anybody in my house, or I'm
True.
going to harm you. And that, so the man is the protector before he's the provider. Now he needs to work on being able to provide, but I think that in the provider spectrum or the provider discussion, I think black men and black women need to be talking more about building together than talking about who can pay all the bills. Um, don't get me wrong. I think that if you can do it, but I think there has to be a plan on building, because when you build together, you're stronger. Because if it's all one person and something happens to that person,
Yeah. And it's
that's how we got to this. If you remember, that's how we got here in the first place with this whole sexual abuse thing. We can't tell on him because he's the provider.
yeah.
Well, if we built something and I'm just as solid as you are, then I'm gonna hold you accountable. And it's so many things that go off into that. Um, and the crazy thing is, because we are producing a situation from the 50s and the 60s of all these events that took place in the 70s and in the 80s as well. Now you got these situations. Now you got other issues that are compounded because of the lack of healing, the lack of
Mm.
proper intervention. So now it's not just this happening. Now they're out doing things, and you wonder why are they acting that way? And then guess what? They go out and procreate and have children, and those children are born into dysfunctional, toxic environments. And we're going to expect them to be productive and strong and pro-social in their behaviors. No, it's going to consistently get worse until you start to deal with the source or the cause.
Yeah, because how can we expect people who were raised in a, I don't know, a dysfunctional, maddening, insufferable environment? They're not going to be a child forever. Eventually, they're going to grow up and become an adult. And now you got this person who was raised in this crazy environment. Now this person has kids, so all they know is crazy, right?
Hmm.
So how can we expect them to teach their children different when all they know is crazy? So I mean, we have to kind of stop it at somewhere, but where do we stop it, Doc? I mean, where? uh, How do we stop it, Doc? What are we supposed to do?
I mean, there's no simple answer for this. I have gone to great lengths to put together what I call the Blueprint 1.0, which is this re-strengthening of the Black community. And it's going to require a conglomerate effort in the areas of economics, in the areas of education, in the areas of reestablishing the Black family. You cannot see one people what they don't what people don't realize. I'm gonna say this, and then I'm not gonna be able to stay too much longer.
Yeah, I
But
know I only got you for an hour, so I'm trying to get it all in. Go ahead, Doc. You
right,
got
right.
it.
But what happens is, if you go back and you look and you see what happened is uh the beginning of slavery. So when we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, where you actually have people who are being brought over from Africa, they weren't born here, they were brought over. Okay, they're brought over in shackles, and they're kept in shackles, but there's a process that takes place. And if you follow the history of slavery, not just in its most brutal form, which was chattel slavery in the West, but slavery in period, the way that people were enslaved were not with shackles, it was with their mind. It was with the usurpation of their whole identity. So what happens is when they're brought over here, what happens is there's a slow process of usurping their mind, and the way they do that is they're robbed. We were robbed of our values, our interests, and our principles. We were robbed of the very structure through which the values and the interests and principles were perpetuated. That's the family. When you interrupt the family, you interrupt the perpetuation of a system of values being perpetuated down the generational line of the lineage. So, in essence, you have four basic institutions in the world. The first is the individual. The individual functions as his own institution because it makes decisions, it develops ideas. He can do everything, she can do everything as an individual. The next institution is the marriage. The marriage is the foundation for the family, which is the third institution. And the fourth institution in general is whatever government or political entity controls it, whether it's the village elders or it's an actual federal government or whatever. That's the fourth institution. That second institution is extremely important because what happens is you get two individuals, two institutions that come together and decide to become one institution. And when it was done, when it's done right, when it's done the way it's historically been done before it became corrupted in the West, it's two people that's coming from two families with similar value systems, similar ideas about how life is supposed to be lived, how a man treats a woman, how a woman treats a man, how important building and owning businesses is. All of this stuff is developed as a systemic force in both families. So they decide, okay, we're going to get married because we have similar value systems. Now we're going to take these similar value systems. These values serve our interests, and these interests protect and perpetuate it in our principles and how we live our lives. But the values are what we are going to enforce. So the children are brought up, and we're going to read a book a week. We're gonna go places. We're gonna travel. We're gonna study. We're going to know who we are. One of the things I did with all of my daughters, I have 8. One of the things I did with my daughters, and I still do, is even with the older ones, is when they were real little. My oldest daughter is 36. And when she was a little girl, she's walking around. And when she began to be able to talk and hold conversations, I said, come here. No matter how many times I came across her in the house, I said, come here. Who's the most beautiful girl in the world? I am, Daddy. What can you do if you put your mind to it? The sky's the limit. I can do anything I want. Okay. And that's like constantly. She's bombarded with that. If I see her 5 times, 10 times a day, she's going to be asked, who's the most beautiful girl in the world? Well, I've established a couple of things. I've told her something about herself that every woman wants to hear. Before she even knows she wants to hear, she hears it because it immediately makes her life. She don't even know what beautiful is the first time she heard it, but it made her smile. Okay, so now she's hearing it, but she's hearing it at such a rate and from a person who has the most influential force in her life, her father. So no other guy's gonna be able to come along and tell her she's beautiful and blow her mind. Because by the time he comes along, she's heard it a million times. I know I'm beautiful. What else she got? Then I'm telling her she can do anything. So I'm not piling limitations or limiting beliefs on top of her. I'm telling her, pick what you want to do, and I'm gonna come along with you. We're gonna get it done together, but you can do it. And so I do this, and what happens is they get the identity. It's over and over again. Tell my sons, you're stronger than you ever know. Don't everybody take whatever you set your mind to, you can do it. You have a responsibility to be strong. You got a responsibility to exercise every ounce of your potential. You have a responsibility to be bold and stand out there and live. Nobody should suppress you. You don't owe yourself to anybody who can't pour into you. And I tell my sons that. But with my daughters, I can remember she's 30, 31 now. When she was in the 9th grade, and this time I'm functioning as a single father. So I got the kids, bunch of teenagers, a bunch of high schoolers in the house. That first wave were going through high school. And I remember my sister saying, I think that I'm not gonna say her name, but I think she might be gay. And I'm like, why do you think that? So you're not worried about it. So why do you think that? She says she's at that age where little girls go crazy over little boys, and I never hear her talking about boys. She just moves around. She's real laid back. I say, well, why don't you ask her? I'm pretty sure if you ask her, she'll she'll talk to you. And when my sister asked her, she told me, she said, I like boys. I want a boyfriend. She said, but I haven't met anybody like daddy yet.
Mm.
She's been married now for 8 or 9 years. My oldest has been married for 15 years. Both of them married their first.
Mm.
I'm not saying it always works out, but what I'm saying is that when you pour into a child, when you give them the values, interests, and principles by which they live, they understand it and they see it. And they know that, hey, number one is they expect it. Plus, they know I can't just bring anybody around my daddy. But see, when daddy's not around, so what happened is they disrupted the family. So if we're going to ever fix this, gets back to the question, we're going to have to rebuild the family. And that's not going to be an overnight thing. There's a common thing that I say often, and it's real simple, and I believe it to be true. In order for us to ever really truly become an empowered people in this country, we're going to have men who are willing to plant seeds that they might not live long enough to see come to fruition. See, we live in a world where everybody wants immediate gratification. Everybody wants a pat on the back for what they've done. They want everybody to know what they did. So everybody's looking for band-aids. Everybody's looking for quick fixes. And the problem is you don't undo 246 years of slavery, 12 years of Reconstruction, 20 years of black codes, 70 years of Jim Crow segregation, another 50 years of mass incarceration and miseducation by coming up with some quick fix in 2 years. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to literally isolate a generation. That's why I do Black Men Lead and my wife does Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters. You have to isolate a generation where you train them on who they really are. And like literally, I have a sister. She's not a real sister, but she's a sister that I work with who's in the Indianapolis area. She owns a compound where she's raised 8 children. And I remember having a conversation with her, and she said her children were old enough to talk and reason and have conversation before they ever saw a white person for the first time. She homeschooled all of her children. She literally isolated them from anything not black and not about what they were trying to teach their kids. Her and her husband at the time, they're no longer married, but they still co-parent their adult children. They still work together. He's still present. Matter of fact, she had a building collapse on her compound. He's over there every day helping to fix it. That's the relation they have. And anyway, she was talking about the fact that she literally can remember the day her oldest daughter saw a white person for the first time. And that sounds extreme, but then you look at it. And another thing she did that I thought was really powerful is in homeschooling, when they get to where they're at the 12th grade year, in order to graduate from her school, her kids had to start and run a business successfully for a year before they could graduate.
Wow.
Her son owns his own, he's 21 and he owns his own construction contracting company. Each one of them are doing their own things, and they're still kids. They do go out and whatever. But one, when she finally went off to college, her friends came back around and they were talking to her mom and they were just like laugh. They thought it was the funniest thing in the world. She was embarrassed by it because she feels like she's missed a lot. But her friends were like really excited by the fact that she was in her 20s and she was eating a hamburger for the first time. But
yeah, man.
It's
all relative though, right, Doc? Like, I mean, all that stuff is relative. You're rearing, who you're around, the type of adult you're around, your geographical area, your socioeconomic.
But see, that's the thing. We've got to stop making the basic principles and values that held us strong at one particular point in our history be relevant. Be relative. There has to be a universal idea of who we are so that we know what we're measuring ourselves against. That's what Black Men Lead is. It's a rite of passage initiative that is meant to be put in front of all young black boys and said, this is what it requires to be a man. And this is the process you're going to go through. All Jews do it, regardless of what type of Jew they are. They all go through the same process. And when the boy turns 13, he has a bar mitzvah that says he has successfully completed his training to become a man. And now he starts to walk into his manhood, taking incremental steps in becoming along the way. Every group has some form of that except us. So you can't be relative, because one person thinks this is what a man is. And you can see it in the arguments. I was talking about you can see it in the arguments, the discussion of what a man is. You know, can he do this? Can he pay all the bills? Or can he do this? Can he do, whatever. Everybody's got an idea, but nobody really knows, because nobody has ever had a universal standard set to say, okay, this is what it is to be a man. Because it should be a number of things that are obvious, and then there's some other things that we can sit up and we can look at. But the number one principle in Black Men Lead is a black man never causes harm to a black woman. Emotionally, psychologically, physically, at no time, at no point does a black man ever cause harm to a black woman. Then we go down, we talk about the responsibility of owning your own business. That's not a notion, that's not a dream, that's not an idea, that's a responsibility. You can't build power if you're giving yourself. You can't leave your kids a legacy if you're on a job. I don't care how much your job pays you. When you die, your kid doesn't get the job. The next person in line does. How can you pass down wealth? I don't care how much you make. You got to have something to pass your kid. You got to have something with your name on it that you can transfer and put their name on it, and now it's theirs. That's got to be built. But what I had to say is this: you have to isolate them long enough to put it in them in a way that it can't be snatched out. But if you sit up and you put it in them, and then at 5 years old, you send them to a public school, it's snatched out within 6 months, because they're going to be inundated with a whole new idea of who they are. They're going to catch an inferiority complex because everything is going to be built around a Eurocentric idea of what is. And so that's what we're up against, is literally isolating a generation long enough to empower them to where they don't succumb to the suggestions of a white supremacist society that will have them thinking that I need to fit in, that I need to act more like this, I need to wear my hair like this, I need to, their Eurocentric idea of what's classy, what's professional, what's beautiful. And then you got to go fit in their system. You're never going to be as strong in their system as they are. It's theirs. So you got to own something strong enough that their system respects your system, and now they're forced to operate and operate with you and work with you. But you're never going to get any political clout holding up a sign. You're never going to get any political clout sitting up yelling and screaming. Why? Because it's just like my 3-year-old grandson. He has absolutely no power, no force in his house. He can't make anybody do anything. And throwing a tantrum means absolutely nothing to me, because there's nothing he can do to me if I don't do what he wants to do. So anything I do for him is because I want to. Well, he's my grandson. So yeah, I want to do it. I love him. He gets pretty much what he wants to, but not because he has the power to. Now, the flip side is, so if he throws a tantrum, that's all it is a tantrum. However, the same thing happens with black folks. You grab a whole bunch of signs, 1,000 of you go down there. All you got is a big collective temper tantrum. Why? Because there's nothing you can do to them if they don't give you what you want. Yeah. You've got to have economic power to underwrite your protest, because the economic power and the natural training and the development of it all says, if you don't give us something, we mad. We here with our signs to let you know we mad. But what follows is, if you don't give us what we want, we are going to XYZ. We're going to take our economic power and we're going to endorse this. We're going to take our economic power. What if, say for instance, it's a business and they're not serving you right. We're going to take our economic power and we're going to put a store up here just like this next to yours, and we're going to compete with you. Now, you either give us what you want or we're going to put you out of business. And that's how things go all the way down the road. If you don't have money, you can't lobby. You can't lobby. You ain't got jack going on in the political arena.
Yeah.
So
it's hard,
all of these
hard
things,
to have power.
Yeah.
It's hard to have power, no money.
Yeah. So, that's just the surface of what we're facing. That's the surface of what we're facing. And, we talk about incest, we talk about inbreeding, we talk about the lack of protection of our women, we talk about um, being last on the we on the last rung of the socioeconomic ladder. Everybody's ahead of us, and we don't understand why. It's because they easily distract us, they easily mislead us and take us down paths that are not conducive to our growth and our empowerment. We are easily misled, and that's the problem, because we don't have a standard. We don't have that again, we're back to the values, the interests, and the principles. We don't have a consistent idea of what we should have and what we should be doing.
Yeah. And I know you gotta go, Doc, but you gotta come back, Doc. That's a lot more stuff I want to ask you and talk about with you. Everybody, Dr. Rick Wallace, y'all need to get down there. Check out this. He's written, I think you've written about 30 books, right, Doc? I think you're up to 30 now, right?
Well, the way I qualify, the way I qualify or categorize books is a book has to be over 200 pages for me to be classified as a book. So with that, I've written 24. I'm on my 25th, but I've written a lot of scholarly papers, a couple of dissertations. I've written what I call guides, which are literally books, but they're 150 pages or less. So if you're talking about publications alone, somewhere about 45 or 50. You're talking about academic articles, hundreds of academic articles, and thousands of prose articles in publications in a number of different places across the internet, in actual publications and news articles, magazines, things of that nature. This has been my work for the past 30 years.
Okay. Well, let everybody know where they can find you, Doc, so they can get on down there and check you out. I put that piece of work that we were talking about earlier, molestation, incest, and rape in the African-American families. I put the link in the chat, folks. Go ahead, check it out, because if you pull that up, you probably can get your hands on some of the other good doctor stuff as well. So go ahead, check that out. It's not a long read. I think it's only about 15 pages. It ain't that much out of your life. So
it shouldn't take that long at all. And I'll be following that work up with a more extensive work probably within the next year because it's becoming more prevalent. I'm also going to be dealing with mental health in general in my work in the coming year. But you can find me on YouTube at The Black Voice. You can find me on Facebook at Rick Wallace. It may be Bishop Rick Wallace or something like that, because that Facebook page has been up forever. You can find me on Twitter at Rick Wallace 21. You can find me on Instagram at Rick Wallace 21.
All right, y'all get down there, man, and check the good doctor out. Dr. Wallace, I appreciate you coming through, brother. I know this was short notice. I kind of came out of nowhere, but but you was like, all right, man, and I appreciate it, Doc. And you got to come back, man.
All right, we'll definitely work out something. I was able to work it out with my wife. When I got off with you, when I told you I was going to check it out, I said, hey, look, this guy's talking about something real that we both, and I can say this about my wife because my wife has written her own book about her experiences, but she's a survivor. Matter of fact, that's how I met her. She came to me and we worked together for a while. She went her way, I went my way. We came back together, and I knew that's who I wanted to be with. So we made it happen. But I was telling my wife what it's about. Once I told her what it was about, she was like, hey, yeah, go ahead. Do your thing. You got an hour. So I go a little over.
Well, tell her I appreciate her allowing you to, come up here and, chop it up with us for a little while.
Right.
But you got to come back, Doc. You got to come back.
Maybe when I come back, I'll bring her, because I think she brings a very powerful voice for the people who have suffered through this. And her story is magnificent. I think so highly of her because she could have easily been defeated. She could have easily have been one of those people who we were talking about who never recovered, and she fought and she healed and she became and she did, and she's done so much. I'm so proud of her. And she has words for women who've gone through that. I mean, she has a healing word, and it's unique and it's authentic. And I would love for her to share that. So maybe we can get her on. She's not as camera friendly as I am. She's not as drawn to it. I've been doing it all my life, but I every now and then I can urge her to get on there. She does videos herself, but I look forward to it. So
Absolutely.
let's get
man.
together
Absolutely.
sometime in the future and come back and finish this discussion and maybe expand and elaborate on some other things.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it, man. And yeah, I'm looking forward to Wifey coming on. I mean, you got me. I had to write this down now. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And sometime in the future, Doc, you come on back. You and Wifey, man, we'll have a good long sit down, man, and maybe the people will benefit from it.
Sounds
You know?
good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Rick Wallace, everybody. And he's a real doctor, too, a doctor of psychology. So he's a real doctor.
Yeah, theology and psychology. I have dual doctorates.
Yep, theology and psychology.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because y'all know we don't bring no fake doctors up here, man. We don't do that. We say they're a doctor, they the real thing. But I appreciate you, Dr. Wallace, for coming through, man. And I'm looking forward to having you back, sir. Thank you very much for appearing, man.
No problem.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me. You have a great day.
Peace, Doc.
Peace.
Yeah, y'all, the good doctor was in the house. Because like I said, we don't bring fake doctors up here. The doctors we bring are doctors for real. Yeah, man, and we got to talking, but I only had the doc for an hour, y'all. So I had to squeeze in what I could. He said he only had an hour. He let me know that early. It was like, only got an hour, bro. So I only had him for an hour. Actually got him to stay for about an hour and, I don't know, 15 minutes. So I got an extra 15 minutes out of the good doc. That's why I didn't do no Q&A, y'all, because y'all know usually, I let y'all ask the doctor questions and all that kind of stuff. But he was only here for that 60 minutes. So I didn't even want to, take it there. But what do y'all think, man, about what we discussed? Like, what's y'all take on it, man? Y'all know we talk about this over here a lot. And, I wanted to, kind of highlight his work, this book here that he wrote. Actually, I think it's a published report. Let me see if I can make it bigger, y'all. And I put the link in the chat because y'all know how we do it here. Don't just listen to me. Read it for yourself because you may get something out of it that I didn't. Or maybe I overlooked something. I don't know. But yeah, check it out for yourselves. And it's one of those, readables, like, well, the pages flip, and you can actually see for yourself. Right. And of course, he developed the Odyssey project as well, y'all. So y'all go ahead and look up the Odyssey project. You definitely can get in touch with Dr. Wallace if you do that. So yeah, man. Because like I said, man, we talk about this stuff over here a lot, man. And it was actually good to have someone come over who actually had written, published work on it. All right. You might want to go down there and give it a read, man. It's not a long read, it's only 15 pages. So it'll open your mind, It will open your mind to this. And because he makes it really, really clear, man. And he talks about a lot of the stuff that we talk about over here often. And he kind of gets into the science of it. He gets into the cause and effect of it. He gets into, how people deal with it as they become adults. Because make no mistake, and even the good doctor said this himself, that when this type of stuff happens to children, it affects them, man. It affects them. It affects them over the long term, especially if they don't get help, especially if they don't get any type of intervention or counseling or therapy, or He said he's got clients that this stuff still affects them in their 60s. Their 60s. People in their 60s still suffering because of what happened to them when they were younger. That's something to think about. But while I got y'all here, I might as well hit y'all in the head with some of T.P.O.T's programming notes. Yeah, Negroes. Because I got a few shows coming up for you good folk. Yeah. Can y'all hear me? It was telling me that my mic was unplugged. Can y'all hear me? Yes? No? Maybe so. But yeah, if y'all can. I got a few shows coming up for you good folk. Now, tomorrow, we're not doing anything. Okay? We're not doing anything tomorrow. Taking tomorrow off. But I will see you Negroes Thursday night, because Thursday, the one and only Gabe A will be here. And we will be doing a little something called Are We Serious? Yeah, brother Gabe A will be here Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. You know. And then Friday, another special guest will be in the house. The one and only Good Mother will be here, 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's right. You heard me. Yes, Good Mother will be here. So you know that's going to be a barn burner, because I'm going to be asking her all the questions you Negroes don't want her to answer. All the questions that y'all don't want her answering, those are the questions I'm going to ask. Yeah, that's what's happening. But also, there's a caveat. At the end of it, we might do a Q&A if we have enough time. You know, it depends on how long, she wants to stay. But yeah. So she will be here Friday. Then Saturday, my man Supreme will be here, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and he'll be squaring off with Enemy Nation. And they still have not told me what the hell they're debating. They still haven't said. It's almost here and still nothing. Because y'all remember last week I was telling y'all they're going to debate on Saturday, but I didn't know what the topic was. They still haven't given me a topic. All I know, folk, is that it has something to do with Thomas Sowell. That's all I know. I don't know anything else. So hopefully by Saturday, they'll know what the hell they debating. But they will be debating Saturday night right here on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. You know. So we got Brother Supreme and Brother Enemy Nation squaring off Saturday night. Friday night, the Good Mother will be here. And then Thursday, Gabe A. So we got a full docket, man, coming down the pipe. Now, tomorrow, I won't see you, Negroes. I won't see you. But you will see me Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. All right? All right. But yeah, man, what did y'all think of the good doctor, man? I got to get him back. Because think about us, right, as a people. Think about us, right? There's a lot of shit that ails us, right? There's a lot of shit that ails us, man. And I think, and the doctor agreed, that part of the shit that ails us is the shit we go through when we're a kid. grow up and, we can't get it together. We can't figure it out, you know. This is why a lot of people just can't get right because of all the shit that happened to them when they were a child, man. You know, especially when you're talking about abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. They said sexual abuse is the worst. That's one of the hardest things to freaking recover from. We wonder why these women walk around here crazy as hell. Y'all heard what the doc said? He said upwards of 60% of black girls get molested by the time they're 18. 25% of black boys get molested by the time they're 18. So you're talking about a whole hell of a lot of people, man. You're talking about a whole hell of a lot of people who grew up molested. And then these people go out into the world and become adults. And we wonder why these girls run around here and have 9 babies by 9 people. We wonder why these brothers run around here and they got 9 and 10 baby mamas. I think often as young kids, when this shit happens to us, man, it thwarts us. Not only does it thwart our minds, it over-sexualizes us too. Because you're exposed to sexual contact at a time where you don't even understand what sexual contact is. So by the time you get to be old enough to express yourself sexually, you already got a warped view of sexuality. Especially if you were sexually abused as a kid and no one ever done anything about it. Y'all know, y'all seen the people come up here and talk about it. More than one person. More than one person y'all have seen come up here and talk about it. Male and female have been on this show talking about the trauma, abuse, molestation, all that shit that happened to them when they were children. And they speak about how it affected them as a teenager, as an adult. You can hear it in their voices, man. It's still affecting them today. It's not like you grow up and the shit goes away, man. It's not how it works. Told you what the doc said. He said he got people, man, he got clients in their 60s that are still recovering from this shit. And I know we don't like to talk about it, because black folks, we are secretive people. But guess what? Keeping it a fucking secret doesn't make it go away. Doesn't make it not happen. No. In fact, I will say keeping this shit a secret is what causes the problems. Don't you think? Keeping this shit a secret is what causes the problems. Because in kind, what do we teach the children to do? Keep the secret. Even though the thing they're keeping the secret is happening to them. What they're keeping secret with is happening to them. Because when these children come to us, we don't believe them. We're in denial. We're trying to protect the perpetrator. Instead of trying to protect the child's well-being, we in kind try to protect the freaking perpetrator. Remember, y'all, we talked about this before. where you got these kids that get molested 15, 20 years ago, and no one said anything. They just let it go. And the freaking person who molested them 15 years ago, he's at the barbecue, he's at Christmas dinner, he's at the family reunion. And everybody just walks around like, nothing ever happened. Like this dude never violated these children 15 years ago. Not only do the children's mothers, like I told the doc, not only do the children's mothers walk around and pretend like nothing ever happened, the children that he did it to are there too. They're there too, just that now they're adults. And they walk around and pretend like nothing happened. So you got them pretending. You got these complicit mothers pretending. And you got the creepy perpetrator pretending. So it's just a bunch of people walking around there pretending that none of this ever happened. That's what we got going on. A bunch of goddamn people walking around pretending. The same thing they did when this was going on. Pretending like it wasn't. Because guess what? If someone had believed those children, if someone had said something, if someone had stopped pretending, maybe it would not have happened to other children. Maybe when it happened to that kid that first time, you could have put a stop to it. And it would have only happened that one time. But when you pretend that none of this is happening, what do? You make it easy for these creeps to continue doing it. Especially if the child is telling you it's going on. They're telling you it's going on and you are in denial of it, accusing the kid of lying. You have just made it that much more easier for this creep to continue to do what he's doing. So now it goes on. It gets worse. We got to stop keeping these secrets, man. I mean, keeping the secrets isn't helping anyone. It's damn sure not helping the kids. Keeping the secrets is helping? How is that helping? How? We got to find another way, man. We got to figure out something different. We can't continue to let creepy dudes or creepy women, for that matter, continue to do what they're doing. Because we don't want to scar the family's name. We don't want to feel the shame. Because to be honest with you, man, that shit to me seems quite selfish. Because we don't want to be known as the house with the molester in it. And I think what often happens is a lot of these mamas, because let's be clear here, and the doc said it too, the kids who find themselves most at risk for this kind of crap is kids that don't have their father around. They're most at risk. And who is it usually doing it to these kids? The mother's new partner. The new Negro she done moved in there. He ain't got no connection to them kids. He don't give a shit about them. He got his eye on them damn kids as soon as he walk his ass in that door. And then you get these crazy ass women who don't give a shit. They see the kid as an incentive for this Negro to stay. So when you got these women who are complicit in this, of course they don't want anybody to know. Because if they do something about it, acknowledge it, they also have to acknowledge that they allowed it to happen. And I guess to them, it's better to just not say anything and let it continue, as opposed to acknowledging that it's going on and that I allowed it to happen, that I brought the monster into the house. Because make no mistake, man, when these kids are getting molested and touched and shit, it's not like somebody dropping out of the sky and, doing this to these children and then going back up in the clouds, man. I think somewhere between 70 and 75% of the time when this stuff happens to these children, it's somebody right inside their circle of influence. It's not some stranger from the other side of town. This person didn't just walk out of a wall. He didn't come out of the closet and do something to the kid and then disappear into another realm. No. Usually it's somebody that's right there with easy access to these children. Let's be honest. Somebody who live in the house. Somebody where your mama drop you off at. Somewhere where you spend nights. It's happening at grandma's house, and auntie house, and cousin house. So acknowledging the problem would also be acknowledging that you allowed it to happen. And you might even have to acknowledge that you facilitated it because you moved the creep into the house. You did that. Now you can say, oh, I didn't know he was a creep, but it doesn't matter. Ignorance is not bliss. You move somebody in the house, they touch the kids, guess what? It's your fault. Yeah, it's your fault. It's not your fault that they're a creep, but it's your fault that you moved the creep in the crib. Yeah, that's your fault. Regardless of what you say, oh, I didn't know. Ignorance isn't bliss when it comes to that. It's your fault. I'm sorry. It is. I say again, it ain't your fault that they're a creep, because that's something they just was. But you brought the creep into the house. Right? You brought him there. It's your fault. So the last thing you should do, if one of them kids come and tell you that that creep doing something to them, is ignore it or deny it or blame the kid or accuse the kid of lying. You get rid of the creep and you ask questions later. Especially in a situation like that. You got the dude living there. Your kids are coming to you telling you that this dude is doing something. God damn it, you need to take that seriously. You don't assume that it's made up. You don't assume that the kid is lying. Stupid. You know? Exactly, Brother Taylor. It's not her fault that he's a creep, but it is her fault that he live in the goddamn house, ain't it? Whose the fault is it? It's the kid's fault? You moved him in here because you wanted penis in the freezer, woman. Just own the shit. It's your fault. Own it. Yes, you made this happen. I know it sucks. Because you know a lot of women, they don't want to be judged. They hate being judged. They like judging everybody else, but boy, they don't want you to judge them. This is why they do this. Like I said, man, I've had many people come on here, and everybody said the same thing. My mama act like it wasn't happening. She denied it. She said I was lying. She said, one girl, y'all remember her. I'm not going to say her name. You're going to have to go through my archives and look. She said that her mom knew the shit was going on and just told her to just shut up. Live with it. Just deal with it. Yeah. Just deal with it, you know. You'll be fine. What do we do with that? What do we do with that, man? What do we do with it? Then we wonder why these chicks just sit around like this. We wonder why some of these brothers are so screwed up. A lot of them, man, got screwed up a long time ago, man. They got screwed up a long time ago. They were destined to be screwed up because they were living with screwed up people. Screwed up people raised them. If you call that raising. Screwed up people put their ideas into their heads. Some of these kids, man, they never had a chance, man. They never had a chance. They never had a chance. For the simple fact of who they were being raised by. It's just crazy, man. And there's no way to stop this unless, number one, you got to take better precautions with who you have around your kids. Number two, these children should be believed. Number three, upon said belief, you got to take action. Your kids shouldn't be coming to you telling you that somebody's done something to them and that person still remains living in the house. I don't give a shit how much in love with them you are, or if they're your uncle or your cousin or your best friend or your daddy or your whoever. The first thing that needs to happen when a kid tells you that something's going on, you need to get this person the fuck away from that kid. All right? Assume the kid is telling the truth. You can't assume the kid is lying. How about you assume the kid is telling the truth and get this motherfucker out the crib? How about that? Does that make sense? Oh, no. And guess what? Something else we need to do. Somebody done did something to this kid, man. We need to do something to them. Yeah, I'm saying it. Then call the police and have them pick up whatever's left. Because I'll tell you right now, boy, I find out somebody done did something, man, to one of my grandbabies, y'all probably won't even see me up here no more. Y'all wouldn't see me no more because I'd be in prison. I'd be in prison. You know, unless I had one of those burner phones that they have in prison, I'll be doing my videos off of that motherfucker. I'll be doing I'll be doing my videos on the jailhouse burner phone and shit. You know? Yeah, man. I mean, we gotta stop, man. I was saying this to the doc, man. We gotta stop acting like this shit don't happen, man. That's a problem that we got, man, in black society, man. We don't like to talk about it. We think it don't happen a lot, all this kind of stuff. Man, one goddamn time is too much. And y'all know it's way more than that. It's way more than that. Way more than that. Way more. And I think we need to talk about it more. I mean, I talk about this kind of shit all the time, but I think we need to talk about it more, man. I guess it don't really matter because, it's always at a distance, It's nobody that we know. It's not our kid. It's not our nephew. It's not our grandkid. So it don't happen. But what if it is, man? What if it is? Now, those of you who are fathers to your children, chances are it's not going to happen because the kids that have access to their father, they're less likely to have this shit go on. But what about the other ones? What about the other ones? We all got nieces and nephews and little cousins, and some of them don't have fathers. Guess what? They're at risk. They are at risk. Especially if they know that these kids have no man in their life. Because these dudes, they pick their prey pretty well. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They know how to pick their victims, man. That's why they kind of stay away from kids, who have readily access to their father. Because the difference between mothers and fathers, you go tell your mama that this dude is doing something, she be like, oh, you lying. Get out of here, kid. Tell your old man that shit. Tell your old man when he comes to pick you up that mom's boyfriend has been coming in your room at night. Tell your old man that somebody done touched you. Your old man is going to stop everything he's doing, and make his way to wherever he thinks that person is. That's the difference between your mama and your father. Especially if old mama boyfriend, you tell something on him, she definitely ain't going to believe you. Because she knows she can't believe you and acknowledge what you've said and keep the penis there. If she believes you and acknowledges what you said, she's got to kick this dude out now. How's she going to believe you and acknowledge you, but continue to let him live there? No. So the best thing for her, at least in her mind, is let me just deny it so he can still live here. Yeah. Let me just deny it. Call the kid a liar. Get at the kid, blame the kid, because for some reason that's easier than just kicking the dude out. And that's usually what it comes down to, doesn't it? She don't want to believe that kid, acknowledge that kid. Of course not. Because if she believed the kid and acknowledged the kid, she got to get rid of the Negro now. Those two things cannot occupy the same space. And see, to mom, it's more important to have the dude there. than your mental health, your emotional health, your psychological health. Yeah, that's more important. That's more important to her. So of course she denies it and say you lying and all some kind of foolishness. Especially some old Negro she like. Some old Negro she in love with. She ain't believing you when you go to her and say he doing something. Absolutely not. Because at that moment, guess what? Guess what, people? He is more important than you. Yeah. But we don't want to get into these old mamas. I don't want to get into that. But that's what it is, man. That's what it is. I got to get the good doctor back here. Because we got into the whole molestation and the inbreeding, but we didn't really get into the incest, because tonight we were doing the N words. I know y'all thought I was talking about Negroes, but no, the N words, I-N. We was doing that tonight. So yeah, I got to get the good doc back, man. So we can chop it up, man, a little more about this, man, because this is something worth talking about, man. Something worth discussing, man. It is. Because we don't like to. That's what makes it so worthy of discussion. Because we don't like talking about it. If you're talking about something that hurts black folks' feelings, that means you're talking about good stuff. If you're talking about something that just makes them feel good, you probably ain't talking about shit. You're probably not. We need our feelings hurt, man. We do. We need our feelings hurt. We need to hurt the feelings of our old mammies. We need to hurt their feelings. Especially if they did messed up stuff. Especially if they did things that affected us as children and screwed our life up as adults. Why should we sit back now and spare their feelings? They didn't spare yours. Your feelings were not spared when mom's boyfriend was touching on you. Your feelings were not spared when you had that nasty auntie doing shit to you. That nasty uncle, that nasty older cousin, that nasty grandfather, that nasty grandmother. They didn't spare your feelings, did they? They didn't give a shit about your feelings. They were an adult and they were imposing something on you that you didn't even understand. You were just forced to deal with it. They didn't give a shit about your feelings. So why should you care about theirs? Especially when you're just telling the truth about what happened to you. It happened to you. You have every right to talk about it. You have every right to talk about it because it did happen to you. That's all I'm saying. And y'all already know, I mean, if y'all ever want to come up here and talk about it, man, it's all good, man. Just hit me up in my email. You can come up here, man, and you can discuss it. You can talk about it. Many people have. I don't have a problem with you coming up here talking about it at all because unlike other people, I think this shit should be brought to the light. I do. We need to stop keeping the fucking secrets. We've been keeping secrets all this time. Where has it gotten us? It hasn't gotten us anywhere. It hasn't gotten us anything. Why are we protecting these people? Bring it out in the open. Put some sunlight on it. Because if that was done back then, guess what? Some of these kids, man, probably could have avoided, man, a lot of hurt, a world of hurt, man. And like I told the doc tonight, man, I think this is something that really ails us. This is one of the things that ails us. The molestation, man. The violating of these children. Then we wonder why they grow up to be ridiculous baby mamas. We wonder why they grow up to rob liquor stores and carjack and knock old ladies in the head in the subway. Their minds were screwed with when they were little. Their minds were screwed with when they were little. And they grew up to be horrible adults. Just like the people who fucking raised them. And I think there's something to it. Is that an excuse for everybody? No. But I'm sure there's a reason, it's a reason for some of this stuff that we see, man. The killing, the murders, the crime. I think it plays a part in it, man. Along with other things, other dysfunctional things. But I think it's got a lot to do with, a lot of shit people talk about we inherit trauma from slavery. What about the damn trauma we inherited from our upbringing? Something more recent. What about that trauma? That don't matter? Some creep been molesting you for years. No one's doing anything about it. You believing that this just a part of life? You go out into the world warped, not knowing what to think. I think it's all relative, man. I think it's all relative. But that's just me. The hell I know. But anyway, I think we're gonna go ahead, man, and wrap it up, man. Short show tonight, man. I'm going to try to get the doc back soon. He said when he come back, the next time he come back, he's gonna bring his wife. Because he said his wife, went through, some trauma, a traumatic situation when she was younger. So, he come back, he gonna have wifey on, she gonna tell a story. But, when that happened, I'm gonna let y'all know because y'all gonna see the thumbnail. But yeah, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead, man. Get up out of here, man. Short show tonight, man. But just one more reminder of what we have going on this week. It's a very top-loaded week. Got some good guests coming through this week, y'all. Once again, Thursday, Gabe A will be here. We'll be picking old Gabe's brain. See what old Gabe got going on, because y'all know we were supposed to have him here the other week, but my computer was messing up. So he decided to come back, and he will be here Thursday night. And then Friday, Good Mother will be here. And like I said, I'm going to ask her questions that I know y'all don't want her to answer. Because she has some interesting takes on things, man. So, yeah, Friday's going to be a fucking barn burner. A lot of motherfuckers' feelings going to be hurt on Friday. I'm telling you. Yeah. A lot of hurt feelings Friday. I can already see it. I'm reading the tea leaves. But yeah, Good Mother will be here Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. You Negroes know. And then we end the week up with my man Supreme and Enemy Nation. They'll be squaring off. on some topic, y'all, that has something to do with Thomas Sowell, because no one has told me nothing. Nothing. I mean, they have not told me. I hit Brother Supreme up the other day, and he said he's going to hit me with a topic. So I'm assuming he's either going to hit me up tonight or tomorrow and have a topic. So I'll just wait on them to let me know. Hopefully by Saturday, y'all, they'll have it figured out. So right now, it's just something about Thomas Sowell, and that's it. That's the topic. But it goes down Saturday. Y'all know Saturday we do the debates a little early. So we're going to be doing it 8 p.m. Eastern instead of 9 or 9:30. All right. So make sure you hear. Should be a good one. The brothers will be squaring up in the digital squared circle. So we'll see what happens. All right. All right. So once again, man, I want to thank everybody, man, for coming out tonight, man. You could have been anywhere. You could have spent your Tuesday night anywhere, but you decided to spend it here with us. And it is appreciated, man. I don't take you good folks lightly. I never have, and I never will. You got my word on that. I thank all you good folks, man, for showing up tonight, man. The good folks here and the good folks who hang out in here as well. And shout out to the good doctor, Dr. Rick Wallace. I mean, and he's a doctor of psychology, and he said theology too. So get on down there, man. Check the good doctor out, man. Read his work. I will post the spoken upon material in the chat one more time, because y'all know how we do it here. We want you to read it for yourself. But yeah, man, it's a serious topic, man, and it's worth talking about. And you know, we ain't gonna stop talking about it here. All right. We're going to discuss it here. If it ain't discussed nowhere else, it's gonna get discussed here. And anybody who don't like that, you might as well just go ahead and unsubscribe, because every now and then we're gonna talk about this, man. We're gonna stop keeping the secrets. They say sunlight purifies everything, right? Let's see if we can purify this shit. Now, I know that's a tall order, but we're going to try, because we're going to put some sun on it. You got my word on that. But anyway, we're going to go ahead, man, and wrap it up, man. I appreciate all you good folks, man, and I will see y'all Thursday night. All right? All right. So, with that, I will leave you good folks with 3 words, you know, like I always do.
Open your mind.
The good doctor is in the house, the house, the house. The good doctor, the good doctor.
Open your mind.
In the house, the house, the house. favorite doctor in the house.
Open your mind.
Only from T.P.O.T. Media. Open your mind.